Okay, so we just got done seeing Marvel's Black Panther. And
ate some Chinese barbecue.
Yep.
Got all over my shirt, my white shirt, defeated by the Chinese barbecue.
And I think we were a little defeated by this film as well.
Yeah, I feel like a chump for spending money, and even more of a chump for wading through the credits to see the sort of trailers or the
more
sequence.
things you can give more money to.
So there are more things to give money to that. They're not even putting much effort into writing these sequences.
No.
The fact that they're
not
there,
funny anymore.
Right. It's just we're supposed to watch them because we're there. It's like we're in on a joke, and the joke is on us. But we're in on the joke on us. But you paid for these tickets. I paid for the Chinese food, which was good.
That was probably
you paid for the tickets, which were awful.
Yeah. So that's I think the overall feeling about this movie. So why don't we first break down a little, like walk you through what actually takes place in this mediocre film. So. I guess we start out with an introduction to what Wakanda is, essentially. And Wakanda is a nation that is influenced from the very core by its valuable material, vibranium, which no doubt you've studied extensively, because we have as well.
Yeah. Atomic weight 114.
Yes, exactly. So, impress your chemistry teacher. But so they're basically, their entire culture is based around that, with 4 tribes that get along, one that doesn't. And we're very much introduced, as I think you'll see that you're introduced to the theme of the movie, the tradition and the conflict of how do we relate to both each other within Wakandan society, and how does Wakanda as a technological sort of marvel, right?
Yeah, so Wakanda is has the most advanced technology in the world, but they have to hide it from the world. So they live in this little place in Africa, and they look like they're just herders and basket weavers, but they're really running the most technologically advanced civilization on Earth.
I think this is like the Pentium 5 that never came out. This is serious business here. So they we essentially are set up with the initial part where the every time the king, a new king is crowned, they have a ritual combat thing, which I think they kind of hint from the very beginning we're going to get tied back to this, right? Like, there's no reason you would set this up unless there was going to be some sort of callback to it. The problem is it's not very interesting.
Oh, yeah, so at the beginning of the movie, we get 2 things happening. One, we get some guy gets killed in Oakland 25 years ago.
Yep.
Turns out, guy gets killed is the father of the villain. And we have the king of Wakanda, who's this 70-year-old guy he killed in a terrorist attack. So the main character is now the son of this king who, he's becoming king now, ritualistically.
Yep. So we go through with that, and that's kind of the setup. And I think from the very beginning, I think we're encountering the original problem, almost, as we explain this movie, which is that there's not a lot of reason to sympathize with T'Challa, the main character.
No. So there's a sequence that happens very close to the beginning of the movie where he's going through this ritual of it's like this guy's gonna become king unless speak up or forever hold your peace. And a guy from one of the tribes says, "No, I challenge this guy to be king." And there's a big fight scene that happens, and
they have a really cool intro. I think as part of it too is that you can tell they're meant to be the more savage group.
They're the traditionalists. They're the really reactionary tribe. They don't use the technology. They live in icy mountains somewhere.
Yep.
But there's the directing of the scene. It's as if we already identify with this character. So there are very powerful women in this society. His sister, his mother, and the head of the army are all watching on as he's about to be slaughtered. And we're supposed to identify with their sense of urgency about him being killed. But I thought, this guy's just another guy. He just inherited the throne from his dad. If a guy's going to kill him, maybe he's more worthy of Mark.
I agree.
So it starts from a place of assuming that, okay, this is
we're strongly into T'Challa's
character. This is a above average height guy with a beard.
We must like him.
He probably is pretty cool. But I don't know. Didn't feel earned.
Yeah, agreed. So, and I think that sort of subtly undermines pretty much the whole film. So, you move into the second part, which is essentially the middle chapter of the quest, right? If you think about it, and we're going to come back to Wakanda as the central point of conflict and how Wakanda should to handle tradition, right, in the outside world. But the midpoint of this is set up with the MacGuffin of vibranium, which is that vibranium escapes from, it's stolen by some terrorists. There's a very good scene where the terrorists steal, including the main villain, played by Michael B. Jordan. We don't remember his name, but he was a villain. And he very stylishly sort of corrals this woman who is the lecturer for the museum around, asking her different questions about the different tribe pieces, and sort of then he comes to the axe and corrects her, and she's sort of condescending to him. It's set up really, really well, and I think it immediately sort of also highlights his character being sort of anti-authority, even from the very beginning, which is part of the reason why I really like the scene, is that they show
him in, like, awesome clothing. It's
he looks really cool.
It's like a really hip, urban chic thing he's got going there with, like, what is it? Like, his hair is, like, half
braided, half shaved. Very cool looking.
And like...
the denim jacket.
Yeah,
he looks really cool. But I think from the very beginning is that this woman, and you're sort of meant to feel like the world itself has treated him poorly, right? Which ironically, I think, we realize that, of course, he's the son of the person who was murdered by the king, right?
Yeah, this guy's got 1 foot in Oakland and 1 foot in the
Wakanda.
Mystical civilization of paradise.
Yeah, and I think that's why we find him to be a more compelling character, frankly. So he sort of stylishly, tricks her. She's condescending to him, which sort of begins the whole process of him feeling like the world has given him a lot of hatred, and he should feel justified anger towards the world for this. And so they stylishly steal the vibranium, and then we initiate the quest simultaneously to recover the vibranium, right? Because the whole idea is that Wakandan society, because it's so advanced, they're very careful to make sure that none of their resources are taken out of the country, because it would be too dangerous to handle, if the rest of the world had a hold of their technology, right? Which is kind of almost like a weird, almost xenophobia thing.
They're sort of an isolationist power.
Yeah.
And the main villain is a guy who's saying, no, we need to use our power to lift up benighted...
other oppressed people.
Oppressed black people around the world. He doesn't say black people specifically, but he says 2 billion people who look like you are... under oppression, and that sounds pretty compelling.
That's the problem.
That sounds like a pretty good foreign policy. Maybe it's a little too
extreme.
Maybe it should be aggressive, but it sounds like a generally good principle. We need to harness the power of this civilization to improve the lot of these people.
And Nathan, I actually think the more we elaborate on that point, the more I think part of the problem for this entire movie is that the reason we talked pretty early that the villain felt more compelling than T'Challa, and I think the exact reason why that is that has this like cool like blaxploitation almost vibe to it of like we're gonna harness. I mean, there's something very fantasy, like power fantasy, involved throughout Wakanda in general as a concept, right? Like, let's be real, right? It's almost like the Intolerable Bastards or whatchamacallit, when you assassinate Hitler, right? The film with you have this power fantasy where we get to see justice done, and we get to sort of almost rewrite history. Well, what if there's a really powerful black civilization that could right the wrongs, was actually technologically superior, and we could overpower the sort of the oppressors and the imperialist sort of culture.
So this villain guy comes to Wakanda, and he basically takes over Wakanda because he beats the main character
in one of the ritualistic duels,
in the same kind of duel as before.
Again, poetry.
And again, this time I thought, I don't mind if that guy wins the duel. Like,
he's cooler.
He's cooler.
Yeah.
And again, we get the directing where it's like we're supposed to feel there's some stakes, but it's like, no, this guy, the main character T'Challa, he's just had everything given to him. We don't see him do anything cool.
And we don't really even know what he stands for, I think, is one of the problems, too. He's like, he's just the guy, he's just all about that, it's poorly done.
So then the rest of the movie is just T'Challa, fights him back, and then becomes moderately more open to foreign aid at the end. So they start like a basketball camp in Oakland or something.
Yeah.
And that's how Wakanda helps the world, is with their like after school chess program.
NASA Space Camp in Oakland, baby. Yeah, I think overall, the critics who are saying that this is vaguely it seems like this might be a change to the superhero genre. It's definitely not. I think there are better superhero movies that are made. There are just a lot better movies that are made than this one. I would say pass. I think this is not worth seeing. And I was really expecting much better, just given the reviews and some of the people that they had, sort of involved on the side, including Kendrick and some other cool things.
Yeah,
it seemed like they had great ideas.
Oh, there wasn't a lot of Kendrick music in this. It was mostly pretty normal sounding soundtrack stuff.
Yeah.
I think there was, I counted maybe like one or two songs.
Yeah.
But I think they recorded a whole album for this
They
didn't use.
They did.
This is a real pity, because that album's probably better than this movie.
Yeah, I think that's our overall feeling is this is another mediocre Marvel film for you all to digest. How exciting.
That Michael Jordan guy is probably going to be in like a good movie at some point soon.
Yeah, that
cool.
man's career should keep going. The rest of this, you can kind of leave it where it is. I think Nathan had the good point that God only knows what they're going to make for a sequel to this, because there is not a lot compelling to work with.
Yeah, I think what's going to happen is the sequel's going to be really terrible, and then people are going to act all surprised, like, why? How is that sequel so bad when the first one was so good? It's like, well, maybe you should re-examine the first one for its goodness.
I think it's just there's just not a lot to really motivate the audience, and I think the funny part of it is that the villain has probably the character arc and the personal backstory that is most sort of compelling and the most emotionally connected, sort of relatable in a lot of ways. Who really wants to vote for, let's keep the moderate, successful, gifted prince in power and rah-rah, yeah. And on that note,
Basketball camp.
yes,
All
in
right.
Oakland. Cheers.
Yep.